I'm Layla Aga, and I'm pleased to welcome all of you to the Sindhi American Political Action Committee inaugural event. Tonight we'll hear from our distinguished speakers as we learned about the role of Sindhis and Balochis to counter jihadis in Pakistan. Let me take a moment to welcome our speakers. Tonight we have Mr. Selig Harrison, the Honorable Congressman Gary Ackerman, the Honorable Congressman Brad Sherman, and Dr. Marvin Weinbaum, who will all be sharing with us later this evening. So welcome and thank you. As a Sindhi American, I am thrilled that the Sindhi American Political Action Committee has formed. I dream of a secular and thriving democratic state in Pakistan. I see great potential for American foreign policy to help achieve this goal by encouraging the education, world knowledge, and empowerment of the traditionally secularist and liberal Sufi Sindhis. I believe that we can end the spread of madrasas and extremism currently tacitly supported by the Pakistani government in my family's homeland.
Hello, my name is Hannah Bursch, and I'm thrilled to be standing in front of so many compassionate and distinguished guests. I welcome you all to the SAPAC inaugural event. Working for the past year on ethnic and women's issues in Pakistan, I am always shocked by the state of gross inequality reaching the Sindhi and Baloch population. U.S. policies have thus far been ineffective in assisting these people, and there is a great need for SAPAC. It is imperative to the advancement of Pakistan that the Sindhi nation is better represented in the formation of U.S. policies, and I am thankful to my friends at SAPAC for taking this challenge on.
Sindh is one of 4 provinces in Pakistan, home to 40 million people. Despite its large population, thriving capital, and rich natural resources and cultural heritage, it receives a negligible amount of public services and has limited access to foreign aid. This ethnic persecution has led to extreme poverty in the region. I would like to now introduce Mr. Selig Harrison to speak. He is the director of the Asia Program Center for International Policy in Washington, D.C., and a senior fellow of the Woodrow Wilson Center for International Scholars. Formerly a Washington Post correspondent in South Asia, he carries approximately 50 years long experience as a journalist and a scholar on South and East Asia. He has authored 6 books on both regions and on U.S.-East Asia relations, including Pakistan, The State of the Union, April 2009. Welcome, Mr. Harrison. Thank you for joining us.
Well, I am very pleased indeed to be here tonight to help launch the Sindhi American Political Action Committee. As you may know, the governor of Sindh and the mayor of Karachi are now in Washington. I went to a lunch for them yesterday, and there's a dinner for them tonight at the Pakistan Embassy that I declined because I had a previous engagement. Well, I heard their message. Their message is that the MQM is opposed to jihadi forces in Pakistan. And that's true. But what's more important, and what Americans don't realize, and I hope that the SAPAC will help them to realize, is what we're talking about tonight. The strongest and most important bulwark against jihadi forces in Pakistan is the persecuted indigenous Sindhi-speaking majority in Sindh and the brave Baloch who are fighting for their rights next door in Balochistan against ISI and army repression that I believe has become worse, not better, since the election of the present government. The religious traditions of the indigenous Sindhis and the Baloch are incompatible with the type of jihadi ideology that is being promoted by Lashkar-e-Taiba and its allies in the Punjab. And yet, the ISI brands the Sindhis and the Baloch as terrorists to cover up their own sins. I'm going to start by reviewing some basic history about Pakistan, just so those of you who aren't familiar with all this have it very clearly before you. And of course, my distinguished colleague Marvin Weinbaum knows much more about this history than I do, but I have the first chance to speak. If you haven't read it, you should read an important book called The Shadow of the Great Game, The Untold Story of India's Partition, by Narendra Singh Sarila, a retired Indian diplomat who was the ADC to Mountbatten. He got unprecedented access to the British archives during his research. In his book, he presents detailed, definitive evidence showing that as early as March 1945, Winston Churchill and the British General Staff decided that partition was necessary for strategic reasons. They deliberately set out to create Pakistan because Mr. Jinnah had promised to provide military facilities to them, and Mr. Nehru had refused to do so. So, first of all, this is important to set straight the prevailing image, certainly among Americans, that Hindus and Muslims were just hopelessly quarreling with each other, and the British had no choice but to divide the subcontinent. But this is also the key to understanding why Pakistan is so dysfunctional. And that is because it is an artificial entity, an artificial political entity. The British put together 5 ethnic groups that had never before coexisted in the same body politic historically. The Bengalis, Punjabis, Pashtuns, Baluch, and the Sindhis. 5 became 4, of course, when Bangladesh seceded. The army bequeathed by the British to Pakistan was overwhelmingly dominated by Punjabi officers and soldiers. So, with the Bengalis gone, the Baluch, the Pashtuns, and the Sindhis have faced a cruel historical irony. For centuries, they had resisted the incursions of the Mughals into their territories. But now they find themselves ruled by Punjabis who invoke the grandeur of the Mughals to justify their power. We should remember that the Muslim League movement that led to the creation of Pakistan originated in the Muslim areas of pre-partition India, not in the areas that were to constitute the state of Pakistan, where the Baluch, the Pashtuns, and the Sindhis live. So neither the Baluch nor the Pashtuns supported the Pakistan movement. The Muslim League sought unsuccessfully to win them over by the Lahore Resolution of March 23, 1940, that the projected Pakistani state would be a confederation in which the constituent units would be autonomous and sovereign, and central government powers would be limited to defense, foreign affairs, foreign trade, communications, and currency. But the Baluch fought militarily against their incorporation into Pakistan until the Pakistan Army occupied Baluchistan in 1958. And they have subsequently, as you know, waged 3 insurgencies, I guess now we're in the 4th, to win the autonomy promised in the Lahore Resolution, or failing that autonomy, independence. Now, in contrast to the Baluch and the Pashtuns, some Sindhis did support the Muslim League, and Sindh was incorporated into Pakistan without a military conflict. But Sindhi discontent soon erupted, not only in response to Punjabi domination of the new Pakistan central government as such, but also because Punjabi rule was buttressed in Sindh by an alliance with leaders of the Urdu-speaking Muslim immigrants from India, known as Muhajirs, now the MQM, who gravitated to Karachi and other Sindhi urban centers and soon challenged Sindhi control of local institutions. As all of you here know from personal experience much better than I, but as most Americans don't know, and as I hope that SAPAC will lead them to know, successive central governments have encouraged Pashtun and Punjabi migration to Karachi, and the Sindhis have responded by forging a political alliance with Baluch settlers in the province. And if this were a day-long seminar, the whole question of the relations between the Sindhi movement and the Baluch movement would be something we should discuss. Now, I think that the most serious conflict between the Sindhis and the Punjabis came during the Zia period, when 43,000 troops occupied the province for months. That was the only time when this situation in Sindh resembled the military upheaval that has been going on off and on in Baluchistan for so many years. But although it hasn't had as overtly the aspect of an armed struggle, what SAPAC, I'm sure, will convey to people in Congress and to the executive and to the American people is that a tremendous struggle has been going on that hasn't taken yet a military form as a result of the suppression of Sindhi rights that has taken place in this environment where so many non-indigenous elements have entered the picture. Of course, in any future dispensation, good relations between all these ethnic elements are going to be important. But I think the central story is that the Sindhi-speaking, indigenous Sindhi-speaking majority has really been the victim over the past decades of so much discrimination in so many aspects of life, not only Sindh as a province in relation to the central government, but individual Sindhis. And what they have suffered and continue to suffer is what I hope SAPAC will somehow be able to get across to members of Congress and to an executive branch that is all too much influenced by what it hears only in Islamabad. Now, tensions are consistently getting worse because each new government in Islamabad has been as bad as the previous one. Now, the PPP promised that it would be different. Lots of promises were made. It promised a fairer share of sales tax earnings, for example. It promised to reverse the gerrymandering that had taken place under Musharraf. It promised to improve the representation of Sindhis and Baluch in federal jobs. One could go on. None of these promises and others have been kept. But I think what makes me most angry is the fact that the human rights violations of the past continue to go on. The ISI continues to round up Baluch and Sindhis without giving them access to lawyers and courts, despite the advent of the so-called civilian government in Islamabad. More than 900 Baluch and Sindhi activists have disappeared without a trace. Some of you may have relatives who fall into this category. I urge you to read the Amnesty International report denying the undeniable and forced disappearances in Pakistan, which cites chapter and verse on this massive violation of human rights, more than the much written about disappearances in Chile under General Pinochet, which many people think of as kind of the worst example of human rights atrocities in the world. I think what we've had happening in Baluchistan and Sindh exceeds what happened in Chile. I use the expression slow motion genocide to describe this whole situation in its Baluch manifestation, where so many people in particular have been killed. Now, American pressure, backed up by this tremendous aid leverage that we have but we don't use, would undoubtedly help to improve the situation. So I hope that the Sindhi American Political Action Committee will grow in influence. Last week, Senators Carl Levin and Jack Reed urged President Zardari to change his approach to the minorities, according to reports in the press, which I think reflects the fact that a gradual awareness of this problem is beginning to sink in. I hope that this event marks the beginning of increasing efforts by all branches of the U.S. government to support justice and human rights throughout Pakistan, and that the United States looks at this goal rather than looking at everything through the narrow lens of anti-terrorism, and in which it doesn't even see the true dimensions of how to deal with terrorism. I wish we had more time. I'd be happy to discuss the whole situation in the Pashtun areas and other ethnic minority area, which I think has been grossly mishandled in American policy. Munawar Lagari has copies of a report I did called Pakistan, the State of the Union, which talks a lot about that problem, because that's what's in the minds of most of the policymakers. But I do hope that the Sindhi American PAC will get attention not only to the Northwest frontier and what's happening to the Pashtuns and the drones and the problems there, but also the very serious problems that I've discussed in both the Sindhi and Baluch areas. Thank you very much. I'm very sorry I have to leave you. As I explained to Munawar, I have a family health problem that requires that I take off and get home. So thanks I've enjoyed being here very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harrison. We appreciate your time, and I suggest that all of you read the report out back. It's quite riveting. I'm honored to introduce now my good friend and the charismatic gentleman that surely got you all here today. Munawar Lagari is a Sindhi human rights activist and sought asylum in the United States, where he has lived since 1994. He is the former executive director of the World Sindhi Institute and a founding member of the Torture Abolition and Survivors Support Coalition. On behalf of the World Sindhi Institute, Munawar received the 1999 Blue Ribbon Award presented by the United Nations Association of the National Capital Area. Munawar has testified before the Congressional Human Rights Caucus on the International Day in Support of Torture Victims and United Nations Human Rights Council, both 2006 and 2007. He has also testified before the Subcommittee on Foreign Operations, Export Financing, and Related Programs, and the House Committee on Appropriations, as well as to the World Summit in Durban, South Africa. He has been interviewed by newspapers, radios, and television programs around the world, including the Washington Times, the BBC, Voice of America, and Times of India. Munawar spends most of his time traveling, fundraising, networking for, and sensitizing relevant people and organizations for the cause of his beloved homeland, Sindhi. Thank you, Munawar.
I'm shy now. Well, thank you for everyone. After a long time, 1.5 years, I came here again. I left Washington, D.C. I thought that I'm going to not live in this city more because I don't want to create more problem in the region. They already threat me, my parents, to me, and my common Sindhi people, especially women, honor killing, children problems, so many problems. Only one person, only one my Sufi guru, Shah Abdul Latif Bhattai, who's giving me energy and strength and motivation and determination. And one very important thing, the love and truth, which I learned from the Bhattai. And that is the reason I'm here, and that's the reason this whole energy brought me here. And I can say the solution of the region, I already, when Zardari came in front of the Washington, D.C. and went to the Washington White House meeting to Obama, I said very openly that President Obama, the solution is not to meeting with the Sufi Muhammad, but the solution is in the Sindhi Sufism. And we Sindhi Sufi are here, and we can give the solution of the region. And that is the peace, tolerance, and success and happiness. And Sindhi Sufism is really kind of is the message to the world. And that is only through the Bhattai, but world don't know it. And that is my mission. That is my determination. That is my program. And I'm very glad that many my friends who came from the different places, my friend Sarfraz Abbasi came all the way travel. One my friend here, Dr. Shujra, who drive in the morning, say 10 o'clock, that he said, can I come? I said, if your love of Sindh, you can come. He came. But this whole organization, I can't be created without two my very good friends, supporters, who gave me a lot of support, financially support, energy, Dr. Amadani and Dr. Makbul Halepoto. They are here. And of course, I'm expecting that a lot of my friends who are financially sound and who are spiritually sound, who will give me the energy, and I'm sure we will continue our efforts. And this region is very difficult. Lot of forces there. Iran is there, China is there, India is there. But we have our own asset, Sindhi Sufism and love and happiness. Pakistan has their own asset, terrorism, mullahism, fundamentalism, and AQ Khan, nuclear. These all assets they have. But we only through love can change the world, can change the region, can change the Sindh. Thank you very much. And I want to introduce my good friend, Dr. Makbul Halepota, who's really very generous. You can't believe me how much he supported me. I cannot tell you, but he's continued supporting me, so I keep it here. And he is very good. He's also the treasurer of our another good organization, very old organization, very community organization, Sindhi Association of North America. SANA is a great organization which is doing a great job, and also the World Sindhi Institute, they have also kind of a think tank, and World Sindhi Congress, they are also doing the very great job in Europe. So I have a program that we will united overseas Sindhi diaspora, and then we will give the kind of inspiration on the ground to the Sindhi people. They will united, and then we tell the Pakistani establishment who we are. Thank you very much. I want to ask Dr. Halepota, then he can come and welcome to my friends.
Thank you very much. I don't want to take a lot of your time. I just wanted to add to what Munawar has said. I'm sure there are a lot of people here who have a lot of questions of why we are here and how all this came to being and what do we plan to do in the future. This all started because Munawar and I have been talking about it. We've talked over the phone for hours at times over the last few years that I've known Munawar. And whenever we talk, our main subject has been what is it that we could do about our common place of birth and about our people who live in Sindh and in very dire situation, and the conditions are only getting worse. And that's how we realize that in this global village that we live in, the only thing we can do to influence and actually positively make a change back in Sindh is by influencing the policies of the policymakers here in Washington. As our first speaker said, that Washington, our United States, is pouring billions of dollars in Pakistan. Our involvement in that region is getting deeper and deeper by the day. And for the last 60 years, Sindhis have tried every possible means to try to convey to the powers in Pakistan of all the injustices that are being done to Sindh, that nobody's ever heard anything that the Sindhis have had to say to the local people. So we thought the best way to do something would be to try to influence the policymakers here and educate them about what is happening, and maybe through them we can then knock some sense, in a way, in the policymakers in Islamabad. So we realized that the only way we could do it is to do something which was positive, which was active, proactive. We have a few Sindhi organizations. They've all done great work. But unfortunately, most of our Sindhi organizations in this country are limited to a social circle where people will get together and have a nice evening, or maybe a couple of evenings together. Families will get together. There will be some matchmaking. They'll find nice matches for their children, which is nothing wrong with that. That's perfect. That's what we need that. But it is time that Sindhis did something more than that. The Sindhis went a step ahead and directly tried to influence the conditions back there. I just wanted to tell you why that is essential, because there are certain factors which are overlooked in Sindh. And if you look at the problems that Sindh is facing right now, it's not just the economic, the poverty. We know Sindh is the most impoverished province in Pakistan, which is one of the poorest countries in the world, despite Sindh having the largest resources both of oil, gas, and in agriculture. Time and again, Sindhis have always ranked as the most, as the poorest of the people in Pakistan, but that's not the only problem. You add to that all the other issues, the political issue, that the fact that Sindhis have no representation in the higher echelons of the government. Pakistan, for all practical purposes, is a country which has been ruled and controlled by the military for most of the time, since its inception, and Sindhis have absolutely no representation in the military. The second most powerful institution in Pakistan is the bureaucracy, and Sindhis at the higher levels have absolutely no representation in the bureaucracy. And even in the politics, so you look at the politics, any politician who's ever spoken up against the establishment has either been jailed, and some of them jailed for life, some of them have been murdered, and there were people who have been assassinated, and it was made sure, and I know you all know who I'm talking about, that they were assassinated in broad daylight, in the eyes, in front of the international media, so that they could be made an example of. That was the famous words about a Sindhi politician who was in the past executed by a judiciary, handpicked by a military dictator, so that he could be made example of. And it's not just the economics and the politics. Socially, Sindhi culture and Sindhi language is completely being eliminated. Sindhi was a medium of instruction up to master's level in the British, before Pakistan. Today, you cannot find a school in Sindh which even in the elementary level teaches Sindhi as a secondary subject. Sindhi was the main language of business in all the government, semi-government, autonomous bodies of Pakistan. Today, there is no Sindhi in any of the government buildings. And then somebody talked about MQM. I just wanted to bring one thing that I think is overlooked either intentionally or unintentionally. MQM stands for something called Muhajir Qawmi Movement. And when you translate into English, it literally means the immigrant nationalist movement. And when a party which calls itself the immigrant nationalist movement proves that by just that their whole existence, their ideological, political existence depends on not assimilating with the locals. So these people who are there, this is their third generation growing up in Sindh, refuse to call themselves Sindhis. They would rather be known as immigrants for posterity. They would rather condemn their future generations to live as immigrants forever instead of becoming Sindhis. And MQM is not the only ethnic party. There are other ethnic parties, which any ethnic party which bases its ideology on ethnicity other than Sindhi is encouraged, while Sindhi politicians are not to be seen. So you add to that, then they're eliminating the traditional Sufi philosophy of Sindh, the mysticism. Sufism is nothing but a form of mysticism, and mysticism is a philosophy which is practiced in all religions. It is practiced in Judaism, in Christianity, in Hinduism, in Buddhism, and the basic philosophy of Sufism is love for all God's creations and creatures. And that philosophy is being destroyed. Instead, what is being introduced is extremism of all kinds, and not only religion. Extremism based on the basis of ethnicity, on the basis of language, on just so that the Sindhis can be converted into a minority, all kinds of ethnicities, and they've opened up the floodgates for illegal immigrants, which are then being encouraged not to assimilate. There's nothing wrong with immigration as long as you have controlled immigration, which goes along with assimilation. There's no concept of assimilation. And then the worst thing that I think that everybody looks at is the ecological disaster that is befalling Sindh. If you talk about Sindh, this whole Indus Valley civilization, or the civilization of Sindh, it's a 5,000-year-old civilization, which is always relied on the Indus River. Indus River is one of the biggest rivers in the world. What is being done to the river Indus is it's being choked to death by building dams after dams. There are so many dams, I'm sure even the experts won't be able to give you the number. And what is that leading to is complete destruction of a river system. And that has led to literally the extinction of hundreds of marine species. If you talk about the blind dolphin of the river Indus is one of the rarest dolphins in the world, and that is close to extinction because there's no water flowing down. So a very famous, one of the most famous delicacies of Sindh is a fish called palo. And Abu Rayyan Biruni, who was an explorer in the 11th century from Persia, who in the 11th century had traveled all the world, extending from the Far East to the Middle East to Europe to Northern Africa, wrote that palo was the most delicious fish he ever ate. Today you cannot find it anywhere because there is no water. And what is that causing is the death of a delta. With death of mangrove forests. Mangrove forests are very rare species of forest which are only found in very few places in the world. And a delta of the river Indus was one of the places, and you cannot. They are all dying. What that is causing then is encroachment of seawater upstream. So the whole lower Sindh, which was the most rich agricultural land, is not cultivable anymore because there's increased salt in the soil. So then that leads to the economic downfall of all the people here who depend on agriculture. So when you increase, I don't want to go into the details, but when you add all these ingredients of religious, ethnic extremism, poverty, death of a culture, death of a language, and I'm sure what you'll have in Sindh very soon will be the next major human catastrophe, a catastrophe that I personally believe is going to be worse than what we've seen in Darfur, it's going to be worse than what we've seen in Somalia, and it's going to be worse than what you've seen in Afghanistan. And that is the reason, not only as Sindhis, majority of us here are Sindhis who were born in Sindh, are people whose ancestors came from Sindh. But even if you're not from Sindh, even if you were not born in Sindh, even if your forefathers not from Sindh, as a member of the human race, I think it is everybody's duty to make sure that we prevent this catastrophe. And that is the reason I would request all of you to get involved and help in any way you can. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Makbul Halipota. Please let me welcome Dr. Marvin Weinbaum next. He is Professor Emeritus of Political Scientist at the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign, and he is currently Scholar in Residence at the Middle East Institute in Washington, D.C. He has served as an analyst for Afghanistan and Pakistan with the Bureau of Intelligence and Research at the U.S. Department of State between 1999 and 2003, and also as Director of Programs in South Asia and Middle Eastern Affairs at the University of Illinois. He has authored many articles and books on the region. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Weinbaum.
Well, I'm very pleased to be here. And like Sig Harrison, I chose this evening over iftar at the embassy. You know, it's hard to match the passion and the completeness of the picture which has been drawn by the previous speakers, emphasizing the injustices which have been visited upon people of the Sindh, but not just the people of the Sindh, and not just injustices by Punjabis, but the Punjabis themselves have suffered great injustices. And indeed, that's really what I wanted to emphasize tonight. But before doing so, let me say that an organization like this organization is important. It's important because you're nationalists in the sense, and you're celebrating nationalism. And that's fine. There are elements of nationalism which are not necessarily attractive as well. We've seen how nationalism can also lead to actions which deny other people their rights, which lead to fanaticism. But nationalism is valuable for celebrating, certainly, the perpetuation of a culture, of language and history. And this is quite good. But at its best, an organization like this can see nationalism as it should be, as a means to an end. Not merely as an abstraction, but as a way of emphasizing that certain peoples are being denied their rights by virtue of who they are, by virtue of their identity. And in a city which is filled with interests, we give them, fortunately, the pejorative of special interests, but that's at the very heart of the American political system. The fact that there is a proliferation of interests and that they have an opportunity to present their case. And long ago, James Madison recognized, as our president, recognized how much more important it was to have this proliferation of groups than it would be than to have just a few chosen few. So I want to wish this organization really the best in its endeavors. We know what interest groups like this institute, this PAC can do, and I know you're in the hands of very capable leadership. I also want to say, though, that having heard all that has been done to people in the Sindh, that we also have to ask, what are the people of the Sindh doing for themselves? And this is important because so much of your influence is so often by the way in which people perceive who you are, what you're all about, what your values are. And when we hear stories in communities of the Sindh where in villages women are denied their rights, where honor killings occur, yes, the central government, the federal government in Pakistan can play a very important part in limiting this kind of behavior. But it's up to the communities themselves and up to the people, really, of the Sindh to say this is unacceptable. You have a wonderful tradition in the Sunni tradition. You've heard about it tonight. And as it's been expressed, it's a tradition which in its essence is not peculiar even to Islam, although it's certainly associated with Islam. But that kind of spiritualism you can find in Judaism and Christianity and elsewhere. And it is the mobilizing of those forces of which there has not been sufficiently enough. It's not enough to simply say we have a great tradition. What has the Barelvi tradition, for example, how has it responded to the Deobandi tradition? Has it been sufficient? Or has it at times even inadvertently perhaps allied itself with that most doctrinaire and non-Sufi-like tradition. I must also ask on the political scene, what are Sindhis doing for themselves? The political party that is the predominant political party in Pakistan today is the People's Party. And if you ask people, where does the People's Party draw its strength? People would say from the rural Sindh. And yet, as we have seen here, this political party has done little, if anything, for the rural Sindh. And yet the people of the Sindh have continued to vote for this political party. And so I think it's right to ask here if there's going to be a change. Excuse me, I've been fighting 3 weeks of cold. There is nothing quite like spending 10 days in Kabul, Afghanistan, to pick up the worst of everything. Also, thank you so much. Also asking, as you have in your literature, that the Sindh not be left to the large landowners. I've got to ask now, what is taking place? Should Sindhi organizations be in favor of a responsible land reform? These are questions, indeed, which have to be addressed. Now, they're important unto themselves, but they're, as I suggested a moment ago, they're important because when we look at the United States, when people in the United States, when people in the Congress, and those of us in the think tank communities who go out and speak about and write about these, we want to be able to say, these people are doing everything for themselves, and we have got to do more to help them because they're on the right track. So I want you not to take for granted, and Congressman Ackerman can speak to this so much better than I can, that the United States is going to be there for Pakistan and is going to help Pakistan in the right direction. We have a tremendous job here in maintaining this partnership with Pakistan. And it can't be maintained unless it's a partnership of mutual interests. And it's got to be, as far as the United States is concerned, it's got to be based on our recognition that we share some common values, some universal values. And that, I repeat, includes women's rights. And that this is respected. And on that basis, we are in so much better position to be able to win over our colleagues who are all too easy these days in saying, oh, as soon as we take care of Al-Qaeda, we're out of there. Not to recognize the stakes that the United States has today. In South Asia, we cannot repeat the era of 1989-90, when we walked away only to see all of the problems that we have today having their seeds in those decisions that were made when we thought that our interests really were no longer lay in that region. So we have a job here, and we need you to help us make this case that this is an important partnership. And one of the ways you can do it has already been suggested tonight, the fact that the Sindh stands out as a bulwark against the kind of extremism that one finds so rampant in Pakistan today. Now the point is to energize that, to make it not just simply as a point of reference, but to show that the Sindh is actively working to neutralize those forces in Pakistan who are pushing the country in an extremist direction. It's been a pleasure to be with you this evening, and I wish you the very best. Thank you.
The Honorable Congressman Gary Ackerman belongs to several committees in the House of Representatives, including the Committee on Foreign Affairs. He is currently the chairperson of the Subcommittee on the Middle East and South Asia. His membership of the Committee on Financial Services includes vice chairmanship of the Subcommittee on Capital Markets, Insurance, and Government-Sponsored Enterprises. It's with great pleasure that I introduce Congressman Ackerman.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Halipota. Sitting with your dad, he's very proud of you. Appreciate the introduction. I'm delighted to be here this evening with you and the Cindy American Political Action Committee for your inaugural, that's important, event here tonight in the nation's capital. I also want to thank Winwar Lagari for his tremendous efforts in bringing the event together and making sure that I got here. And I want to also recognize who's not here tonight, tonight's chief guest, my colleague and my friend on the House Foreign Affairs Committee, Congressman Brad Sherman, who I expect will be here shortly. It's a busy night for us. I'd also like to add my welcome and thanks, and sorry I only heard the last part of it, the remarks by Dr. Marvin Weinbaum, and I missed Sig Harrison, who are two of Washington's most distinguished foreign policy experts, and you're very fortunate to have both of them here tonight. Brad, I was just talking about you and saying how busy you were. We make alibis for each other, which I guess is. Tonight marks an important turning point for your community. Like all of the other people of the world who have come to make America their home, there has been a pause between your arrival as a community and your political arrival in Washington, D.C. So allow me to offer my congratulations to you. You have arrived in American politics, and you are most welcome in it. Every ethnic community comes to the United States with its own heritage, its own concerns, and its own history, and every community contributes to the strength and vitality of this nation. The sophisticated exercise their rights positively to influence public policy. Our great diversity of national and ethnic origins is one of the things that sets this nation apart, and we are right to celebrate that. You see it on our coins, you see it in the chamber of the House of Representatives, and you see it in everyday life of this country. E pluribus unum. Out of many, we are one. The contribution of South Asians to the United States has already been felt in academia, medicine, technology, and business. The next step, I believe, is in popular culture, and more importantly, what you embark upon tonight, in politics. And the moment is ripe for your political activism to take shape. Because of the 9/11 attacks on the United States and the ongoing war in Afghanistan, American attention is focused on South Asia as never before. And your help in explaining the vast complexity of this region is urgently needed. In land area, as you know, South Asia is half the size of the United States. Literally 2 South Asias can fit within our borders. But South Asia is home to more than 1.6 billion people, and the United States, twice that size, has just over 300 million. In Pakistan alone, while official business is done in English, there are 5 major provincial languages and at least 50 other languages spoken among the 180 million citizens. And such a variety is by no means unique in the entire region. Facts such as these are not the basis for American policymaking, but they should be a cause for caution. South Asia is a region of almost unimaginable complexity, and most Americans come to it as strangers, as outsiders. And more unfortunately for many Americans, this region is still primarily seen through the lens of the attacks on our country on September 11th. As all of you well know, this association is doubly tragic. The mad and wicked men responsible for 9/11, of course, are not from South Asia, and their true ambitions are directed toward the Arab Middle East, not the subcontinent. But worse still, South Asia's own problems have become horribly engrossed in the struggle we face to destroy the threat of radical extremism. As all of you know, that before 9/11, India and Pakistan had fought several wars and gone to the brink of war many times over. You know that Afghanistan was a badly ravaged country even before the Taliban took over and before al-Qaeda set up shop and began plotting the attacks on our country. And from painful experience, each of you can explain why Pakistan was not a stable democracy well before we called upon that government to assist us in the fight against al-Qaeda and the Taliban. And though many Americans are unaware of it, before 9/11, the United States could not honestly claim that our commitment to either Afghanistan or Pakistan was sustained, deep, or serious. As you all know, it wasn't. To our own detriment, we used them. And the Pakistani government, and especially the Pakistani military, used us. And we justified this approach by assuming that dysfunctional, non-democratic governments in Pakistan and Afghanistan, as well as their failing economies, were problems of little consequence to our interests or our security. Without the benefit of experienced and knowledgeable guides, we made a lot of bad assumptions. That the fundamental political instability of the region could be contained by states and constitutions, and that they would make conflicts between regions, religions, tribes, and ethnicities go away. That flags and governments would suffice in place of genuine political reconciliation. That conflicts between states and within states would not bleed over borders, or at least not beyond the region. In short, that the complexity of South Asia could be sealed up and shrink-wrapped into a tidy national package and then left in cold storage. And nowhere were these assumptions more prevalent than with regard to our policy in Pakistan. I don't have to tell any of you that these assumptions did not pan out. So today we're engaged in extensive military operations and massive efforts at governance and capacity building. At a time when our own economic and fiscal position is strained, the circumstances in Afghanistan and Pakistan still absolutely necessitate these extraordinary efforts. Like many, I remain deeply concerned that the money and initiative effort, and let us never forget the blood of our heroic troops, will be for naught if we don't start making some very fundamental changes in how we do business. We've poured billions of dollars in both economic and military assistance into both Afghanistan and Pakistan, and it's not hard to conclude that much, if not most, of the money was badly spent, if not almost completely wasted. We fought for years in Afghanistan, and it can't truthfully be claimed that the country is either safe or getting safer. Moreover, the current counterinsurgency campaign in Pakistan, though badly overdue, has given rise to a massive displacement of approximately 2 million people. The anger and desperation of this population should give us pause if the continued and growing public outrage about civilian casualties caused by our drone strikes was not enough. And our neglect to bringing to the table the issue of how ethnic groups within nations we're trying to help are viewed and treated and often mistreated should embarrass us. Despite a revived political partnership with Pakistan, we have seen very little political progress in that country. The last elections helped shift the political dynamic back towards constitutional government, but there is a very long way to go before anyone could say in truth that Pakistan is a nation of laws and not of men. Only now are Americans becoming aware of just how much the inadequacies of Pakistan's institutions mean for our own vital national security interests. And with that awareness comes a need to look at root causes. And that means we need your help. Pakistan's history is relatively short, but history of the territory that makes up the nation is as old as humanity. Indeed, evidence of civilization has been found in the Indus Valley dating back from 9,000 years ago. As such, if human history in that part of the world were thought of as a single year of 365 days, British colonial rule would account for just 4 days, and Pakistani sovereignty just over the last 2.5 days. What most Americans think of the history of Pakistan is really less than a week of the existence of the region. So we do need your help. We need your advocacy and your involvement. We need your ties, both personal and professional. We need your knowledge and your prodding. The destiny of this nation and the nation from which your lives and histories began are now linked. We will not be able to block the ambitions of Al-Qaeda, the Taliban, and other armed militants without stronger states in Pakistan and Afghanistan. And stronger states means where human rights are respected, it means the rule of law, it means independent institutions, and it means the governed decide who leads. And yes, there is and will have to be a role for armed forces, security services, and police. But what is becoming clear is that while our own understanding of the regional security, ethnic, and tribal dynamics is growing, so too is the popular backlash against the methods that we've been using. So something needs to be changed. Albert Einstein's warning holds true today. He said, "We can't solve our problems by using the same kind of thinking we used when we created them." In approving billions of dollars of assistance and supporting the heroic efforts of our troops and our diplomats and development offices on the ground, Congress has done a great deal. But I wonder if perhaps we wouldn't have done more if we helped infuse a bit more circumspection about our ability to buy or impose those changes in the interests of other states and the needs of other people. What if we had injected a bit more cautiousness about our capacity to build capacity for others, and what can be achieved without strong local institutions? Maybe we'd be better off if we had shown a bit more modesty about the ability of the U.S. military and of U.S. assistance to deliver political reconciliation and economic development. Sindhi Americans have an important and critical role to play here. You know what happens when civil conflict in Pakistan creates internally displaced people. You've seen the flood of people into Karachi. You know what happens when Islamic extremists are left unchecked. You've seen the influence spread like an epidemic. You know what happens when part of Pakistan's mosaic of ethnic minorities are left unprotected. You've seen the changes for the worse in the role of the Sindhi language, culture, and society. America needs your contributions, and not just in our economy. The future of our nation is inextricably connected to the wider world. The needs of this country and the special concern that each of you has as Sindhi Americans for your mother country and for family and friends who are still there requires your involvement. You've embarked on that tonight. Your voices must be a part of our national debate, and I, for one, welcome you to it. Out of many, we are one. Thank you for being a part of that.
Thank you, Congressman Ackerman. It's my honor to present Congressman Brad Sherman this evening. He is a member of the House Committee on Foreign Affairs, the House Committee on Financial Services, and the Judiciary House Committee. Additionally pertinent to this evening, Congressman Sherman is the member of subcommittees on Middle East, as well as the Committee on Subcommittee on Middle East and South Asia, as well as the Subcommittee on Asia, the Pacific, and Global Environments. Thank you.
It's a pleasure to be with you, and particularly a pleasure to follow Gary Ackerman, my somewhat more senior and certainly much older colleague in Congress. For those of you who I haven't met, I'm Brad Sherman from California's best named city, Sherman Oaks. I represent half the San Fernando Valley in the United States Congress, and my colleague Howard Berman, who chairs our Foreign Affairs Committee, represents the other half of the San Fernando Valley. So it's interesting how the careers are intertwined. Our districts are literally intertwined. With me today is John Broadkey, who's on his own time, since this is a political action committee. John is a senior staffer with the committee, and in particular works on the issues of the subcommittee that I chair on terrorism, non-proliferation, and trade. If you want to make sure you're getting all the updates on the things I'm doing in Congress, make sure John has your email address. John, you can sit down now. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. My family has been involved with South Asia, and particularly with Sindh, for longer than I've been alive. My grandfather and my grandmother lived for over a year in the Metropole Hotel in Karachi, where my grandfather established the office of the International Labor Organization back in 1951. As you know, the ILO is part of the UN, having been established as part of the League of Nations, and he established technical training programs in Sindh long before I was born. And my wife has spent 3 years in South Asia working on development projects. She wishes she could be here, but about 8 months ago, our own development project was successful, and she's home with the baby. And my sister is a volunteer teacher in South Asia as well, spends most of her time teaching American Sign Language as well as English. Now, Gary and I work together very closely. He and I sit together on the Financial Services Committee, sit literally side by side, where we're working to try to restore the American economy and make sure that we never have a meltdown like this again. We sit together on the Foreign Affairs Committee, where he chairs the Subcommittee on the Middle East and South Asia, and I chair the Subcommittee on Terrorism, Non-Proliferation, and Trade. And it is, of course, Foreign Affairs that will be the subject of my speech here today. Finally, I also sit on the Judiciary Committee, where after health care is dealt with, as you may know, we have some contentious discussions of that issue. I think Congress will be turning its attention toward reasonable, balanced, comprehensive immigration reform. And the Judiciary Committee is also the committee that focuses on the civil rights and civil liberties of all Americans. I want to take the opportunity to commend you for your activism for Pakistan, for democracy, and especially for Sindh. The 30 million people of Sindh will benefit from your efforts and your ability to drive home to the American Congress the importance of working with all of the different components of Pakistan and working to make sure that Pakistan is the kind of good partner that the United States needs, not only in our efforts against terrorism, but also in working toward democracy and working toward development around the world. The most important element of this, pending in Congress now, is a bill that was introduced by Howard Berman, Gary Ackerman, and Brad Sherman into the United States Congress, and that is the Pakistan Enduring Assistance and Cooperation Enhancement Act. That is the bill that provides for $1.5 billion each year to Pakistan, and in a break from what was not a well-considered policy of the past. This is $1.5 billion not for military, but for economic and social development and education, to build the democratic institutions, to build the educational institutions that will allow Pakistan to build prosperity and democracy. The House has already passed this bill, which, in addition to providing the aid, focuses on textile imports into the United States and provides for duty-free import to the United States of textiles created in special reconstruction opportunity zones in Pakistan and in Afghanistan. But I think that perhaps more important than aid is what the United States can do to help Sindh and to help Pakistan develop trade relationships with the United States. Because $1.5 billion is a very large amount of money per year in aid and would put Pakistan at the very forefront of economic aid recipients. But $1.5 billion is a tiny amount when you look at the overall trade of the United States. And the dollars that we send abroad to our trading partners more than dwarf what we send abroad to aid recipients. As it happens, I've developed, long before he became ambassador, I developed a friendship with Hussein Haqqani, who is the ambassador from Pakistan, as you know, and my wife Lisa, his wife Farah, have come to know each other over the last several years, and I am going to be working with him and with the embassy to try to move American law toward admitting textiles from Pakistan on a highly advantageous basis, the same basis that we provide to Colombia. And that provides not only money, but it provides money which, by its very nature, has to go into the hands of regular working people. A portion may go here, a portion may go there, but most of what is paid for textiles goes to the people behind the sewing machines. And that is a guarantee that cannot always be achieved with our foreign aid dollars. So I look forward to working with you to build a relationship in which Pakistan is not thought of as a country where democracy is holding on, a country that re-achieved democracy recently, but rather a country where democracy is absolutely solid, where Pakistan's friends expect it to be a democracy, and where the people of Pakistan will accept nothing else. The armed services of Pakistan have an important role. I don't have to tell you that Pakistan faces national security threats, both over its border and within its borders. But that is not a reason for the military to be playing a role in the politics of the country. And it is good to see the proper civilian-military relationship has been restored, and I look forward to building on that to the point where it is regarded as permanent. Part of that is to make it very clear that the United States is a friend of a democratic Pakistan, and that we expect that to continue, and that whatever military aid we provide to Pakistan is to a military that reports to a civilian leadership. So I would go on much longer, except Gary spoke so well, said almost everything I was going to say, and I realize that I stand between you and dessert. And in Politician 101, they put right there in the handbook for politics, do not stand between people and their dessert. Oh, you ate? What? But others have had dessert? Yes. Oh, well, let me tell you about the San Fernando Valley. Folks, I want to thank you for your support. I look forward to working with you, and even if I'm not standing between you and your dessert, I think I've covered enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman Sherman. I would like to once again welcome Dr. Makbul Halapota to the stage to lead us in a question and answer period. So please, everybody, feel free to bring forward any questions you have after listening to the fascinating speeches we heard tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Leila. I just, to get back, I'm sure there are a lot of people here who have a lot of questions. This is our first session, and I've been very impressed by all the kind words and the wise words that we've heard from our speakers and from Mr. Sherman and Mr. Ackerman. But you're all welcome to ask any questions. Anybody?
My name is Cameron Abro from Columbia, Maryland. My question is, I've heard a lot about aid going to Pakistan in different forms, non-army aid going to the people of Pakistan. But most of it seems like it's going to the urban centers of Pakistan, not the rural centers. And especially we have gotten here together in the name of Sindh and Sindhis. So I don't see any aid going towards Sindh or Sindhis. The aid that is going to the Sindh is probably near to Karachi and near to the Urdu-speaking areas. So how can we address that since Congressman is here?
I'm sorry to interrupt you at your dinner.
Well,
I'm okay.
I want to thank the questioner. I think by getting involved in an organization like this, you focus those of us in Congress to focus on just that issue. Because frankly, we tend to focus on, well, what's going to be our policy toward Pakistan? And the only region of Pakistan that gets a lot of attention is the tribal areas, for obvious reasons. And so the issue of, are the various minorities of Pakistan being treated fairly by the government is one that is now more on my mind than it was yesterday. And that's why you need an organization like this, and that's why it's wise for you to be here. There is a real attention toward the importance of aid to rural areas, but all too often the focus of both our government and governments around the world is the urban population. So I think that there is in the bill that I talked about a focus on the rural poor of Pakistan, and as a result of this meeting, I think Gary and I will be focusing on making sure that the different regions of Pakistan and the different ethnic groups of Pakistan are treated fairly.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Joel Wishingrad of World Media Reports, WMR News. And I also cover State Department and some of the leading think tanks here in Washington. Over the years, I've asked questions, and I've met Manowar and his earlier group, the World Sindhi Institute. But one of the things that seems to be plaguing people is that they don't realize that because Sindhis are peace-loving, and it's in your culture going back 4,000 or 5,000 years, maybe longer, that you're a bulwark against the Taliban and, of course, Al-Qaeda. And Karachi being a city of roughly 14 million and larger, that would be possibly the next step in this whole group togetherness of these misfits going south and also through Baluchistan. It's time that I guess our government and others wake up to the fact that you just can't put money into a group that's going to funnel it to the military. Pakistan is not, fortunately, it's not Myanmar, or last has been known as Burma. So that hopefully, as Gary Ackerman said today and also Brad said tonight, that this has to be dealt with immediately. And I don't know what the policy concerns are of the present administration, but we've seen in the recent past the policy concerns with the Bush administration as well as President Perez Musharraf.
Thank you very much. That was very good comments, Dr.
I had a question from Congressman Mr. Brad Sherman about the MQM. You know, they just recently met with some of the officials in the State Department without the permission of government of Pakistan, though they are the part of the government of Pakistan, about how this aid will be utilized. Who is the gentleman who is authorized to do, Mr. Lagari? Yeah, they came without the permission of government of Pakistan to meet directly with some of the State Department officials to probably to permit them to carry out that aid, you know, to implement that. I don't know how that's going to take place, but I was really concerned about that how come they come down to State Department without the permission of government of Pakistan. However, they are the part of the government of Pakistan to talk, to implement that aid, you know. Thank you.
Chairman, do you want to answer to that?
Well, I guess it's kind of two questions. First, why would this a party that is part of the government come separately? That is a matter of Pakistani politics. It is not at all unusual for members of Congress to travel and meet with foreign leaders, even when they're not speaking for the government. I have done it both ways, where I'm of the party that's out of the government, and I've met with foreign leaders, and when I'm the party that's in the government, but I don't, say exactly what the State Department is saying. Otherwise, why would I need to do it? The fact is that although I'm part of a party, I'm thinking for myself. The second issue is the State Department agreeing to do the meeting, even though it's not with the Foreign Ministry of Pakistan. And the answer there is that the State Department needs to hear from a wide variety of sources to get information and to reach the right policy. So it sounds like a meeting that was useful on both sides. And if it was just foreign ministry to foreign ministry, I think an awful lot of the content would be lost. So the fact that it's a party that's in government, but obviously the individuals are not part of the foreign ministry,
talking to our State Department makes a lot of sense.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I guess that is one of the reasons we have this Political Action Committee, to counter any wrong information or any information which is not factual of all the facts. And hopefully we'll be able to convey our side of, or our version of the issues. And that's the reason we're here.
Thank you. I'm Fazia Diba. I'm originally from Quetta Pishin area of Balochistan, in the border area between Afghanistan and Pakistan. I see a lot of my fellows from Balochistan here. Along with the Sindhis, we are in straight union together, and we really are for basic human rights of the southern Pakistani area also. My question, or rather a concern that I would like to share with all of you, and would direct it to Honorable Brad Sherman, that in your speech you mentioned about the ROZs, the Reconstruction Opportunity Zone, and a lot of funding for that area going from the US to promote development in that area. And you typically mentioned textile industry promotion in that area. Now my concern there is, where is textile industry really famous from? It's again the same Punjab area where these textile industries are all located. And hence I feel that again through the Reconstruction Opportunity Zone is a huge opportunity for that area to develop. Again, people from Punjab will be coming and becoming your partner, direct hand in hand the way they were through the military and through the other ways. So you are again in partnership with Islamabad directly and Punjab. So what about the area itself? What about the local products of that area? Why not wool? Why not lamb? Why not milk products? Why not heat or hide of a camel? Why not these local products of that area? Why not dry fruit for that matter? Why not natural resources? Yeah, so I would really want to take your attention to that area itself. And if you could involve people from that area to discuss the Reconstruction Opportunity Zone project, because I had an opportunity to be an observer at the US Chamber of Commerce where ROZ project was being discussed. And I looked throughout the table, they were all from Punjab. Everybody, including the Minister of Commerce. So how do you design a project for an area without including people from that area in any form? Thank you so much, sir.
There are two issues. One is the existing ROZs, which, as I understand it in the bill, are focused mostly on areas near Afghanistan and areas where it would be difficult to establish a modern textile operation. The second issue is, for future discussion, is the idea of allowing more Pakistani textile imports from all over Pakistan to come to the United States. Now then the question would be, where would entrepreneurs establish the textile operation? Would Karachi, would other parts of Sindh, would the entrepreneurs step forward and say, we can make those garments here, or would it all go to the Punjab? And that requires an understanding of the Pakistani business practices and the availability of capital and entrepreneurship in the various parts of Pakistan that exceeds my knowledge. I frankly can't tell you whether if we made it easier to establish a factory to make shirts like this one, whether the person who would step forward would be a Sindhi or a Punjabi. I don't know enough about Pakistani business.
But if you focus on shirts only, you would hardly find a Pashtun doing that at least. But dry fruits and other
Yes.
products. See, look at the front. Sorry.
Yeah. Anyway, the focus is on textiles, and it would take. I will agree. It'd be very difficult to do in the Pashtun areas. That's why the special economic status is being granted. Whether anybody will think that special economic status is sufficient for them to do in the Pashtun areas that which ordinarily would not be done there, I don't know.
I guess the concern, Mr. Chairman, is that when you passed these bills, if there was a condition or a stipulation that that these zones should be built in the rural, underserved. Like even in this country, I'm a physician. When I came to this country, I was on a temporary visa. In order to get my citizenship, I had to work in what was defined as underserved county. So I worked in a small town with 5,000 people for 4 years. So, and there are counties, there are districts and divisions in Pakistan which we know are underserved. So if in the bill, any bill, and we're not, the idea is not to put you on the spot. This is if you could put that kind of a stipulation that all these the developments should go to areas which are lacking behind in all. That was the whole idea.
Hello, I'm Jamal Hassan. I'm originally from Bangladesh. I'm a Bangladeshi American and also an advisor of the World Sindhi Institute. I have a question to Congressman Sherman. Do you think that war on terror only we can achieve the victory only through battlefield, or there is an ideological aspect on it? Thank you.
Well, that's a good question. I would, I'll let Mr. Sherman answer that. But our focus today is mainly in what is happening in Sindh and Balochistan. But if you want to answer that.
That's really more of a worldwide question than a Sindh question, but to give you the short answer, it can't be done exclusively militarily. It has to be done ideologically. It has to be done through development. It has to be done by winning people over. And the mix, I think, in terms of total dollars that we devote, ought to move toward the economic as opposed to the military. It is very easy to appropriate money for the United States military. Now, you get into great controversy on whether the military should be deployed, but Americans, by a large majority, want to see the military get dollars. To try to get the same dollars to economic development, to try to get 1/20th of those dollars to economic development is much more difficult. But whether it's public diplomacy, whether it's USAID or the military, those and other things are going to be necessary.
Thank you.
It's a nonsense quote. Wow. I'll go ahead and pose it. My name is Karim Abdian. I represent the largest coalition of ethnic groups in Iran: Baluch, Arabs, Turks, Azerbaijanis, Turkmens, and all. I asked that because our situation is very similar, like you Sindhis and Baluchis in Pakistan fighting fundamentalism, jihadism, and apartheid in Pakistan. We are fighting the same thing. We in Iran are fighting fundamental Islamism, Khomeinism, but also Persian nationalism. But in Iran, we are 2/3 of the country. My organization called Congress of Nationalities for a Federal Iran. We're about 47, 48 million. I'm an Arab Iranian. Now, my question is, if you wanted to fight fundamentalism, you really have to go beyond just Pakistan, Afghanistan. In United States, my question to Congressman Sherman is that United States in Pakistan and Afghanistan is trying to impose a nation state. Well, Pakistan is not a nation state, nor is Afghanistan or Iran or Iraq or Syria, okay? So we have to realize in this country that Sindhis have a right and they cannot be ruled by the Punjabis. In Iran, the Baluchis and the Arabs and the Kurds are ruled by a third, just 1/3 of the population, Persian. So I guess the broad question is that, is there a thinking in the US government that finally realized that it's not going to work, try to push a nation state in Pakistan or in Iran, but go beyond and hear the Sindhis, the Baluchis, and the Kurds, and the Arabs, and the rest? Thank you.
That was a good question. I appreciate it if you keep your questions short. Mr. Chairman, do you want to answer that? Or if you don't, you don't have to.
I would just say that it is difficult for the United States in dealing with all the countries of the world to understand in which countries the thinking is we want to maintain the territorial integrity of the country, and in which countries a majority of the people would like to see separate states created. Now, I don't know whether the people in Iran you represent want a federal Iran. You're nodding your head. I think that from the U.S. perspective, it's a matter of supporting a democratic Iran. And the people of Iran need to decide how much power to put in Tehran and how much power to put in Tabriz. For example, Britain gave new powers to the Scottish Assembly. There's no way as an American I should have an opinion on how much Edinburgh should do and how much London should do. I just believe Britain should be a democracy and they ought to work it out. And I'm hoping that the right balance is achieved in Pakistan as well, and only a democratic Pakistan can determine the level of autonomy each province should have.
That's very true.
I just have a small comment and information that I would like to share. I have a friend in Intelligence Bureau of Pakistan who used to work there. He said that since 2001 till today in Pakistan, a lot of terrorists have been killed and captured. Not a single one so far, he said, is a Sindhi-speaking terrorist killed or captured. So Sindhis are the peace-loving people, as we all know, and we are your best friends in that region. So help us grow so we can have a stronger Pakistan and a stronger alliance between you and us. Thank you.
Very good.
Hi, my name is Khalid Hashmani. I belong to a small group called Sindhi Excellence Team. I want to first of all thank you for a very enlightening talk. I guess the purpose of these meetings, and I'm very thankful that you've given us opportunity to ask questions, and the President, one of the main purposes of such meetings is that we tell you about our situation and in turn also learn from some of the internal things. I just will take 1 second to tell you that the plight of Sindh, or Sindhis, is very obvious if you go a little bit deeper, even in finances. 92% of the revenue of Pakistan is collected from federal government. The Pakistan's constitution, you talk about democracy and constitutional government, Pakistan's government gave a lot of powers to provinces, which illegally or by manipulation have been usurped by federal government, and they collect 92% of all the revenues. And then what they do is they keep 52% of that revenue for the federal government, and 48% is distributed purely on population basis. And much of that 52%, about 117 billion rupees of that is spent on military, and 28 billion rupees are given in the federal capital area, which is also located in Punjab, and 70% of population that city, and 70% people working in military are also from the Punjab. So you can see that out of 43%, it is said that Sindh is giving about 300 billion rupees in taxation revenue, and it receives about 22% of what it gives out to the federal government. So these are the types of inequities that Sindh has suffered. I don't know, you might treat it as an internal problem, but you have to take these considerations when you are targeting the areas where the government, federal government, by some means, by usurping legal or illegal means, have been able to manipulate. When you talk about civilian government, really you know it and I know it, the real power is not with the civilian governments. It is with the military. They dictate the terms. Nobody can question the defense budget. No details are announced about how much except on the broad terms. So those things, civilian government people, they select those people who are ready to play the game, and that's how people are denied. So as a congressman, as one of the members of decision makers, that you look at those inequities And somehow, either by making sure that American aid is targeted to people who are denied in a legal or illegal way, or somehow you ask the question from the Pakistan government that our Sindhi American constituencies are asking this question. One question which I request every congressman, senator I meet, ask the Pakistan ambassador one day when you are having a dinner, how many Sindhi-speaking people are working in the embassy? And you will know the statistics. There are about 200 to 250 employees in Pakistan embassy, and you'll be surprised if they can quote you more than 2 or 3 people. One according. Okay. And Sindhis are about 12 to 15% of population. Now my question is, is that Bush government gave a lot of aid to Pakistan, and both you and other congressmen agreed that a lot of that was wasted without any results. What type of checks and balances and policies are in place now that you'll ensure that it reaches the real people, and 80% of it is not siphoned off by corrupt politicians or corrupt military officers and other people? Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, do you need to answer that? You have all the facts now.
I mean, just to give you the kind of simple briefing paper you get if you're not familiar with Pakistan, I know that the PPP is strong in Sindh. I know that both the current president and his late wife were born in Sindh. Somebody looking from the outside of Pakistan would think Sindh is running the place. The largest city is in Sindh. The party that controls has roots in Sindh. So I'm obvious. I would say it's important for the voters, the Sindhi voters, to vote for a government in Pakistan that reflects their interests. And at the same time, as you point out, while Pakistan is a democracy now, when a military has just given up power in a last year or two, where everybody does not find it beyond imagination that the military would try to influence politics in the future, the military then, even if they're not in power, they have too much power over the civilian. And the solution is to create such strength in the democracy that it becomes more and more unthinkable for the military to defy, to refuse to answer questions, etc. And I'll tell you, we've worked hard on that in the United States. I'm a member of Congress, as you may have seen from some of these pictures of town halls. Members of Congress are not always treated with deference and respect. The one group of people that always treat me and every other member of Congress with deference and respect are the military officers, all the way up to the chief of staff. And that is because we have a military that teaches that respect for the civilian government at the very beginning as a core part of military instruction. And again, the only group of people I know will treat me with respect are the American military officers.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I'd really like to thank you for joining us today. Clearly, there are a lot of distinct groups vying for your support. And my question is, if a Punjabi Political Action Committee came to you yesterday and asked for your support, who would you ultimately choose? And have we done enough today to earn your support in Congress? Are we going to see some real-world impact from what we did today?
I mean, I can't tell you that a year ago I woke up and said, there's a conflict between Punjabis and Sindhis, and I'm going to go to Congress and fight for the Sindhis. Again, it would surprise even, let's face it, most Americans don't know there is a PPP. Of those that can name a political party in Pakistan and who know that party has support in Sindh, that it's that the Bhutto family comes from Sindh. I mean, it is eye-opening to hear an explanation of how Sindh is not treated fairly by the government. But I would hope that I would have the integrity to say pretty much the same thing to any group of people who are asking me the same question. And one of the reasons to do that is because one of the reasons I do that is because of my personal integrity. Another reason is that now I find just about everywhere I go, it's at least possible. I don't think it's true here, but it's just at least possible. Somebody has listened to one of these phone video recorders. So I find that I'm on camera just about any time I don't want to be. And so it used to be that politicians were advised that they might say one thing in one room and another thing in another room. For those of you who didn't see, this gentleman has an electronic device that may or may not be recording my image or voice. Exactly. So basically, I'm not going to say anything in this room that I wouldn't expect to be played for the Punjabi Political Action Committee.
But Congressman, let me remind you, your roots are to the Sindh. Your grandparents lived in Sindh, not in Punjab.
Exactly. Mr. Sherman, the only thing, you keep bringing up this point that the current PPP is a Sindhi party. Just to give you, just to give you a background, the chairman, the original chairman of People's Party, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, was executed on a trumped-up charge. Benazir Bhutto was assassinated. Her two brothers died. One was murdered right in front of his house. The other one died in mysterious circumstances. And if you look at the history of Pakistan and politics, every Sindhi politician has either been jailed for life, tortured, people have been murdered. So just because they have the government for the last year in the 60 years of Pakistan doesn't mean that Sindhis have ruled. That's just another misconception that I have. And I'd spoken about this earlier, is this concept that somehow Karachi, if anything goes to Karachi, or that then somehow Sindhis are controlling Sindh. Let me just point one other thing out, and I did that earlier, and I don't want to sound repetitious.
What are the difference between Karachi?
Exactly. See, the party which actually controls Sindh is called the MQM, the Muhajir Qawmi Movement. And as I pointed out earlier, the literal meaning of Muhajir Qawmi Movement is the immigrant nationalist movement. That means that the whole philosophical, ideological, political survival of that party depends on not being called Sindhis. That was the only point I wanted to make.
That's a party
that the governor of Sindh has been from that party, and he absolutely runs the province. And everybody in Sindh will tell you. We have a chief minister who is famously called the chief minister, not the chief minister. But that's a different issue. We can talk about it in detail.
Well, they are here independently. The question I asked you to talk to the State Department to help them to translate.
We have a question here.
That's fine. Well, Congressman, thank you for all the questions that you have answered. I probably don't have a question, but I have a little concern for all of my brothers who are Sindhi. I mean, I've been hearing it all along that, I'll blame game, that we always like to blame Punjab and then Karachi. But we need to step up to the plate, and then we need to show the world what we have to offer. Because I'm sure everybody has to offer something, and then we as a Sindhi, we need to figure out our way to get ourselves recognized throughout the world. And then I don't think we have done enough. I mean, I can't talk on behalf of Balochistan because I'm not into politics or anything. But my deeply concern is that we Sindhi need to come up and then be united and then try to show the world that we have something to offer. Thank you.
Very good. We agree. Completely agree.
Yes, my name is Walt Landry. I'm the executive director of the think tank for national self-determination. It's a group around the world that's involved. I want to support our new president is a question has to do, is very quick, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but the representatives of the United States in the Congress, you mentioned that you think in American terms, and maybe you need to think in longer range or other terms in this sense, that you refer to minorities in Pakistan and Afghanistan. These are not minorities, these are peoples, distinct peoples that have been around for over 100 years. And it seems to me that's different from being a minority in the American sense. So I wish you would think of that when you consider the problems of Pakistan. Thank you.
To you.
I'd like to give the congressman a little break because he's been extremely informative. But I have a question that I think that we should all ask ourselves here, which is, most of us pretty upset about the situation in Pakistan, but we're not in Pakistan, and so I think we need to ask what concretely we can do as Sindhi Americans and people sympathetic to the problems in Sindh. What concretely can we ask the government to do, to the U.S. foreign policy or our friends in Sindh, to try to improve the situation?
Well, I guess I'll try to take that one. Let's give Congressman a break. As one of the things that I pointed out, I think whenever the U.S. aid goes to the government in Pakistan, they need to make sure that it is actually going to the people who need it the most. And the people who need it the most are the people in the rural areas, especially in the rural areas of the poorer provinces, which have been neglected. Balochistan has been producing gas for Pakistan ever since its inception, and its cities and villages and towns are the ones who don't get any gas. Sindh is the one which has been producing oil, and there are hardly any villages in Sindh which have any gas or oil. And these are the kind of the infrastructure, and then we have to also ask the U.S. government to look at the ecological disaster of what is happening in the lower areas of Sindh with the death of the river of Indus. All of these things have to be, that is the best we can do. Because I think in future, the U.S. government will have more influence with all the money that they're pouring in and all the involvement. So we just want to bring to the knowledge of the policymakers here that Pakistan, don't treat the whole country of Pakistan, the cities of Islamabad and Karachi. There is a rest of Pakistan, the rural Pakistan, the poor Pakistan, which needs help. So whenever you're talking to the policymakers there, make sure. And the other thing I would say is the way I look at Sindh's problems are cultural, economic, ecological. Culturally, I would request Mr. Sherman to make sure that the old languages of Pakistan, Sindhi, Balochi, Brahmi, Saraiki, all these languages are preserved, those cultures are preserved. Because when you let a culture die, you take away the values of that people. Values which are based on love and peace and Sufism. Values, Sindh in this 5,000 years of its history has never invaded anybody else's territory. Sindh has never had any imperialistic ideas against anybody. So you have to preserve that culture, you have to preserve that language, and that's what we are asking. We would ask the policymakers here to convey to the policymakers in Pakistan that they should preserve all of these things, the values, they should encourage the poetry of Shah Latif and Sachal and Bulleh Shah, who talked about nothing but love and peace for everybody. Instead, the poetry that is taught in the textbooks of Pakistan is poetry of revolution, poetry of I don't want to go into the details, but then and along with that, they have to make sure that the economy of these impoverished areas of Pakistan, they do that in this country also. As I said, the government is very aware of the counties in this country which are underserved. And they are very aware of the districts in Pakistan which are underserved. So when they send their money, when they send the experts, they should tell them to concentrate on those areas and encourage those people and encourage their development. And that is it's not something I'm not expecting
Mr. Sherman, to go out today and change the whole U.S. policy towards Pakistan. It's a game of engagement. I think it's our duty as Sindhis, even as human beings, to educate them, to let them know what is happening on the ground in Pakistan. If I was in Karachi a few months ago and I went to Hyderabad and I went to the Indus River, that river now looks like the Mojave Desert. All you see is sand flying around. There's not a drop of water. And when the US government sends billions of dollars in aid to government of Pakistan to build a dam, they should look at the ecological disaster that's going to cost also. That's our job. That is the whole purpose of this political action committee, is to give them the other version. And that is what we will do. And I'm not going to stand here and say that somehow we'll change the whole world, or even Sindh, but it is our duty to try, and then we'll see. And we need, and I'm one of the things that I must mention, I'm so happy that we have young people who are here, who are involved, people who were born in this country, who have love for the homeland, the land of their ancestors. And that is what we need, because you people can talk to the politicians here much better than me. But that is the kind of energy we need, and I'm so glad, Mr. Sherman, that you took so much time and so many questions.
I have a question just from my own knowledge, and I don't know. If somebody could give me some input about how the Pakistani government deals with the Sindhi language. That is to say, is broadcasting prohibited or allowed? What language is used in the high schools, the elementary schools? Is there an effort of Islamabad to turn Pakistan into an Urdu-speaking country?
I'll just give you a little background, and I'll let the experts. So what happened? When we were growing up, Pakistan only had one TV channel. It was called PTV. And once a week, they had a program for half an hour in Sindhi. Well, then for in the last 4 or 5 years, Pakistan had this electronic revolution where they opened up all these private channels. And there were like 3 or 4 Sindhi channels which opened up. And they started actually, showing some of the true culture. So Pakistan government came up with this regulation called PEMRA, which is called Pakistan Electronic Media Regulatory Agency. Something from the Nazi book, to control the private media. And they shut down one of the Sindhi channels, just to show to the rest of them that they could not step out of line. So there are some private channels now showing Sindhi programs, Sindhi language, but as far as the government media is concerned, the most you get now maybe is half an hour a day in a 24-hour. That is the representation of the Sindhi language. And just to give you a little background about Sindhi language, I think I spoke about it earlier, and I'll repeat again, you were not here, Mr. Sherman. Sindhi was the official language of business, probably when your grandfather, maybe before that, lived in Sindh. Sindhi was the medium of instruction up to master's level in Sindh. Today, there are hardly any elementary schools in urban areas of Sindh which teach Sindhi as a second language. Because there's absolutely, and I'm sorry I sound repetitious, but I passionately believe in this, there are absolutely no attempts for assimilation. When you have a party which bases its whole survival, its ideology, on being an immigrant and never assimilating, and that party is given absolute control of the province, you can well imagine what is going to happen to the language.
Congressman, please, I don't want to advise you, but let me tell you, each and every official delegation of Pakistan presents you and other organs of the government and people as Pakistan being one nation, one country, one culture, one language. But that is not the case. That is not the case. I just give you one small statistic I was pointing out. Out of 210 producers in Pakistan television, there are only 10 Sindhis. That is 5% from a population of 15. And you ask them question. The one thing I will tell you, it's very easy to discover when you ask them that why the Pakistan is really a multinational federation. That was the whole premise. The whole premise of Pakistan is based upon a resolution called 1940 resolution. And somebody already talked, Dr. Salek Harrison talked about, that was on the basis of autonomy and sovereignty of those provinces. All those promises have gone down the drain, and there's one focus: to destroy the cultures of the small nations of Pakistan. And that is one of the biggest. They'll go all by means. He gave example of Sindhi language. It talks about the education, government-funded education system has intentionally been allowed to die down, because then government is absolved of the responsibility of teaching in the legal language, which the legal language of Sindh is still Sindhi. But they are destroying the education system, which is government funded, into private schools, and then giving aid to the private foundations to open these schools. They have opened in rural area schools where Sindhi is simply an elective. This year's 2009 education policy was announced 2 days back. Up till now, as he gave example, it was compulsory to offer Sindhi language up to 12th grade. Now they have reduced to 5th grade. So this is a cultural genocide happening in Pakistan, and you should be aware, you should ask questions, right answers will come to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Asif.
I'll just add an example. I did my high schooling from Karachi, and these subjects as a second language that were offered to us were Farsi and Arabic. And Arabic. And I chose Farsi for some reason.
Does that answer your question, Mr. Sherman? Okay, that's the. I think that's enough. I'm going to close this now. If any.
About your comments, sir, about the president being from the Sindh, it's like they're saying that I am the president of this country, and I say so with the permission of army. That's how strong the army is in Pakistan.
I should like to bring to your attention what is wrong with American policy. American policy is being dictated by Pakistan's nuclear plan. 9/11 was vintage Pakistan Army and ISI. Its planning, its sophistication, its execution, it was vintage ISI. The Pakistan Army was rubbing shoulders with the Taliban at every level. It was actually assisting them in their war against the Northern Alliance in Afghanistan. And they were in close cables with Al-Qaeda and with the Taliban. When 9/11 occurred, what happened? We rushed and rewarded the very perpetrators of 9/11 with billions of dollars in aid.
You have a reason why the ISI would have wanted 9/11 to occur?
They had given a free rein to the terrorist groups, to Taliban and to Al-Qaeda. That was their policy at that time.
After US left from Afghanistan, ISI was left alone, Pakistan was left alone. And during that period, I believe the mission of ISI was to promote Islam in Baltic states, in Afghanistan, and everywhere, and create a big Islamic state or something. So ISI was constantly working towards Islamic fundamentalism.
The best winners of 9/11 is the Pakistan Army, and its worst losers are the suckers who died in that event. And this whole game, this whole farce of this war against terrorism has been played on those victims of 9/11. And I'm surprised that no one is talking about it. No one is pointing this out.
You do know that the ISI was very close to the Taliban.
No one will admit that this policy is being dictated by Pakistan's nuclear plan.
But now we cannot even touch Musharraf. He's giving lectures here. We cannot touch Musharraf. The Constitution of Pakistan says that he is a terrorist and he should be hanged, and he's free in the United States giving lectures, making hundreds of thousands of dollars in one lecture. He's giving a lecture in Baltimore, I believe, on the 5th. So Pakistan is organizing the lecture next week.
Folks, I look forward to staying in touch with you, both individually and collectively, and to learning an awful lot more. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, it's great to see a Valley boy. Yes.
Oh, I gave him my card already.
Yes.
But yeah,
Yes,
he's
you
my
work
boss.
with